World War II tidbits. My son reminded me the other night of this little tidbit that I had told him a long time ago, so I thought I'd share it. In April of 1943, the destroyer O'Bannon, under Commander Wilkinson, was serving in the Pacific near New Georgia area. One day while heading back to New Caledonia, the O'Bannon spotted the RO-34 Japanese submarine. Commander Wilkinson ordered his destroyer to charge in at full speed. With the submarine on the surface, his intent was to ram the submarine and sink it. But as they charged in, the submarine seemed to not even be aware of their approach. It didn't change its course, speed, or attempt to dive. This made Commander Wilkinson nervous. So at the last minute, he surmised the submarine might be laying mines, and if the destroyer hit one, it'd all be over. So he ordered the ship to immediately slow down and ordered a left turn. As they slowed down, they came up close alongside the submarine, but didn't ram it. Still, there was no change. The crew of the O'Bannon began crowding up on the side of the ship to see the submarine that wasn't doing anything. As they cruised alongside each other, the submarine's hatches burst open and Japanese sailors began coming out of the hatches. Some had handguns and others began running for the submarine's .50 caliber machine gun on its deck. The sailors of the O'Bannon began to panic. The sailors were not armed nor prepared for close combat. At this moment, Commander Wilkinson realized the whole thing was a trap. The sub-commander had meant to lure them in, knowing the destroyer's guns couldn't shoot that close. And since the O'Bannon sailors were unarmed, if the Japanese sailors managed to board the ship, or if they managed to open fire with that .50 caliber machine gun, so he ordered full speed ahead to open some distance. Now here's the good part. At that moment, the sailors of the O'Bannon realized that if the Japanese reached their guns before the ship could gain some distance, it'd be all over. Being unarmed and not knowing what to do, the sailors of the O'Bannon started grabbing potatoes stored in buckets nearby waiting to be peeled and began throwing them at the Japanese submarine. The Japanese sailors, panicked because they'd never seen this before, began assuming they were hand grenades or some kinds of explosives, so the Japanese sailors on the submarine began running around grabbing the potatoes, some throwing them overboard and others throwing the potatoes back at the sailors on the O'Bannon, hoping they'd explode. And the sailors on the O'Bannon? Well, not realizing that the Japanese believed they were hand grenades, would pick them up off the deck and throw them back at the Japanese. As the potato distraction fight raged back and forth, the O'Bannon was able to gain the distance, finally opening fire on the submarine and sinking the RO-34 and winning the Great Spud Fight of April 1943. Thanks again for listening to my World War II tidbits.